The Mario DS Minigames seem to inspire a lot of nostalgia for people. After all, every so often a video centered on them blows up, and even on some significantly less popular videos I made, I got quite a few comments of people sharing fond memories. It's hard to pinpoint what exactly about these tiny games inspires such feelings, but they're a shared experience all the same. However, what if I told you there are even more of these minigames? In a mode that gets talked about way less than the ones present in 64DS and New Super Mario Bros. Everyone loves Luigi Poker. When was the last time you heard about Luigi Blackjack? Or Yoshi's Snowball Fight? That's right, in New Super Mario Bros. There's an entire group of multiplayer minigames that I bet most people have never even played. So today, I thought it'd be fun to look through some of these games and see how they differ from the single player ones. Starting with a high level overview, there are 4 categories. Action, puzzle, and tabletop all return from single player, but variety gets replaced with a new one-on-one category. You can play all of them with up to 4 players, except for the 1v1s. You also get to pick between a shuffle option or to freely play whichever ones you want. The games themselves are an interesting mix of completely original ones and conversions of old ones. For instance, Wanted gets a multiplayer version that's basically the same, just now you're racing your friends to find Wario first. A lot of the reaction-based minigames take an approach like this, where they're kept similar to the single-player version, just with the added chaos of having to be faster than your friends. Alright, instead of randomly jumping around, let's go category by category to take a closer look, starting with... You might have expected me to start with action, but I decided that 1v1 would be a better place to start, since I only had one other person to play these with anyway. Much like the abandoned variety category, the style of 1v1s are all over the place, with the only similarity being the fact they are only available for 2 players. Going from the top, Versus Mario Slides takes Mario Slides and places each player on opposite sides. Now, instead of having to deal with the lines that you previously placed, you also have to account for where your opponent placed their lines. This is one of the most clever conversions. Just adding another player really makes it so much more dynamic. I can also easily imagine a scenario where someone just spams branches to make the entire thing super hard to play. Sort or Explode has been renamed to Bob-Omb Sudden Death and is completely different. Instead of infinitely sorting until you can't keep up with the flow, you're able to send bombs to the opponent's side in groups of 5 or 10. This one completely keeps the spirit of the original, but adds a unique piece of strategy of whether to quickly send 5 or slowly build up to a more deadly group of 10. It's a good twist, and I can see how the concept works best with only 2 players. Also, all of the explosions remind me of the fact that in 20 years I'll be stuck in an underground bunker and only you liking and subscribing can save me from that. Anyway, Jumping Brothers, Jumping Sudden Death, and Versus Trampoline Time all share the concept of keeping Mario in the air, either by tapping on him or using trampolines. I don't have much to say here since they're very similar to the single player versions, except for the fact that they include Luigi, which is like, kind of an obvious thing to do for the second player, but I thought it was still a cool discovery. The gameplay is fine, and sometimes the other player can get in the way, just most of the time it comes down to being an endurance test. Lakitu Launch is a brand new top-down shooter, where each player gets half of the field and you have to shoot at Lakitus to compete for the higher score. Its main gimmick is that every so often Lakitu carrying a star will float by. The star will land on whichever side Lakitu is defeated on, and gives that side a ton of points. So you want to be careful to not shoot the ones on your opponent's side, or be quick to hit the ones currently on yours. It's just a pinch of strategy, but it makes it really fun. Bob-Omb Trampoline is another original, and it's sorta like volleyball. You have to bounce the Bob-Ombs to the other side by sliding your stylus underneath them. At first it's really easy, but eventually they start throwing in multiple to make it super chaotic. Overall, it's good. Finally, we have Versus Paragon, which is basically just matching, except you're both playing at the same time. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this one because of how simple it is. Every card you match goes to the other player, and whoever has less cards at the end wins. If one player can get rid of all their cards, the match ends early, but your opponent would have to be like 4 years old for that to happen. Not a bad time or anything, I just feel like being multiplayer didn't make it better like it does for most of the other games. Alright, that wraps up the 1v1 category. Stepping back for a bit, I think one reason these minigames don't have many YouTube videos on them is that they're less accessible to record. After all, DS capture cards can be pretty hard to get nowadays, and getting 2 to show both perspectives is even harder. Or, God forbid, recording of another human being IRL. So you might be wondering just how I recorded all this footage. Well, I'm braver than all of those people with their quality standards, because I'm making this video with 0 DS capture cards. However, I did buy a DS Lite just to have 2 DSs to play with. The action category is mostly conversions, which honestly makes sense. For these games where you're constantly tapping the touchscreen, just doing so alongside another player and testing who has the better reaction time is a full game. Starting off, we have Snowball Slalom, which is a simple race to the finish line. I like this one more than the single player version because I don't get cut off by the timer. Yes, it's a skill issue. Also, while researching the script, I found out this one shares its name with a WarioWare microgame, so that's cool. Run Babam Run becomes a fight for survival where the last player standing wins. The main difference though is that every player gets 3 lives before being knocked out, which is a really good idea to include, considering you can bump into other players to knock them out. Overall, I really like this one, mostly because being able to bounce people is super fun. Versus the Kichu launch is about trying to get Spinies into your own basket without landing any into the opponent's. Whoever's basket has the most Spinies wins. Now you might be thinking, wait, wasn't there already one called the Kichu launch? And you'd be right. The one we're looking at right now is the real versus Lukitu launch, since it actually resembles the single player version. I don't know why they named them the same thing. The gameplay is fine. Kinda boring with just 2 players since there's only 2 baskets that are pretty separate, but I bet it's better with more people. Whack-A-Monty is literally just whack-a-mole, so I hope that's self-explanatory. Balloon racing, on the other hand, is a race to see who can blow their DS the fastest.
Oh no, blow into the mic. Back out, back out, back out. Nope, we are not doing that one today. Nope, nope.
I didn't play this one. The last game of the action category is the only brand new one, and it might also be the best. Snowball Slam is a snowball fight in one of the most detailed minigames. Hitting your opponents in their snowman grants you points, but you have a limited amount of snowballs. You can refill your ammo by running over piles of snow. This loop is inherently one of the most complex since you're constantly trying to aim, dodge, and reload. It's also unique for being team-based. If you have 4 players, they end up being 2v2, and if you only have 3, then the player on their own gets the advantage of being able to hold more snowballs at a time. It's definitely one of the best. What particularly fascinates me is the fact that it includes a 3D Yoshi model. Visually, I'm just so used to these games being sprite-based, so seeing a character with polygons is just cool. It's the same reason I like seeing Luigi in the Jumping trilogy. Now that we're done with the action category, I think now's a good time to discuss another barrier to entry. Some of you more free-spirited listeners may think you could potentially try playing these by pirating them. But I'm sorry to say, I have no clue how you'd even get that to work right. Now, actually running 2 instances of that one melon-themed emulator isn't hard to do. It's actually surprisingly easy. If you use Parsec, you can also easily share one of these windows to another person and hook up their controller. I got Mario Hoops 3-on-3 working like this. The issue comes from the intensive use of the touchscreen. Maybe there's some piece of technology or setting that I completely missed, but I have no clue how you would set it up so that each player would have their own cursor that could interact with the different windows on their own. I'm like 90% sure it's just an OS level issue. Nonetheless, Parsec is still a pretty decent solution for some of the more turn-based games, such as... The tabletop category has the most multiplayer originals, which makes sense. After all, the developers could just remake as many card games as they could think of, such as Speed, which is the exact same as the real-life version, where you have to try and get rid of your entire deck by playing cards that are either one below or above any of the current cards. It's a good time. Memory Match is your standard memory game. Just take turns picking cards and keeping matches. Whoever gets the most matches wins. Picture Poker removes betting, but is otherwise the exact same as single player, just now you're against other players. Luigi's Thrilling Cards is similar to Texas Hold'em, where you don't know what card you have, but can see the values of everyone else's. You have to bet based on whether you think you have the higher card. I love gambling. Luigi Jack is just blackjack, with the amusing chains of a blackjack being called Luigi Jack. And finally, Bob-omb Reverse is based on Reversey, where you have to flip over all your opponent's pieces when you corner them. I totally didn't think Reversey was how Go worked before making this video. It probably seems like I went through all those really quickly, and that's because I'm just really not sure how much analysis I can apply to these real-life classic card games, you know? Like, what do you want me to say? Poker is actually terrible? Everything here is as fun as their real-life counterparts. But I think I would have had more to say if I had access to more players. The amount of strategy or bluffing one can do is significantly lower when you only have 2 people, and I think pretty much all of these would be way more fun with more than 2. Well, even if I don't have access to more people, I can still at least see what it looks like, so I went ahead and bought a 3DS to try it out. But now that I think about it, 4 players really is a lot better than 3, so I also bought a DSi to... After playing with 4 consoles at once, I can definitely confirm that it makes them more interesting. Even though tabletop in particular is improved with more players, all of the categories do benefit, which we still have one more to cover, so let's move on to... The interesting thing with the puzzle category is that it's entirely made up of conversions. There are absolutely no originals here. But the changes to the minigames make me like most of them way more than the single player versions. Admittedly, Wanted and Witch Wiggler are pretty bad examples of this. They both pretty much just become reaction tests where you have to find Wario or the Quake Wiggler first. But they're still pretty fun. They also get put on a timer, so you can't just keep playing forever. Hide and Boo Seek is where it actually gets interesting. The single player version involves visualizing where moving boos will be once the screen goes dark, and then using the touchscreen to reveal their locations. Kinda like trying to track a DVD screensaver with your eyes closed. It's a good concept. My main problem with it is just how tight the time limit is. The multiplayer version doesn't have a time limit, and is completely based on people trying to find the boos as fast as possible. I like the setup a lot more personally. Puzzle Panel is a bit of a middle ground. At the end of the day, it's mostly the same and kind of becomes a reaction test, but being able to decipher the patterns quickly rewards a different kind of mental skill than being able to spot Wario first. Concentration is also similar, being identical to the single player version. It just becomes turn-based and rewards players with better memorization. Both are solid and add some nice variety. The real standout of the puzzle category is Loves Me. If you remember this one from Mario 64 DS, this is the game where you just pick a flower and give Yoshi depression. It wasn't very good. This multiplayer version converts it into an actual counting game. Players are limited to picking up to 3 petals at a time. If players can pick the last Loves Me petal, they'll get a point. Conversely, if the last petal is Loves Me Not, they lose a point and can even go into the negatives. It's still very basic and also might be super rigged when playing with 2 players. But I think it's super cool that they are able to take such a nothing experience and actually convert it into a neat little gimmick. Approved! And that wraps it up for these obscure little minigames. There are less completely original ones than I was hoping for, but it was still really cool to give them a try and discover a new part of something so nostalgic. If you ever get the chance to try these out with someone, I would definitely recommend doing so. Luckily, with download play, you only need 1 copy and 2 consoles, so that makes it slightly easier to play, even if your DSi's top screen is cracked. If you like this video, then I think you'll also like